Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you find yourself on our fantastic planet. And welcome to the first, actually, of what we're calling the I can't even find my words, of what we're calling scaling management capability and how to scale management. And let's face it, and sometimes in organizations where the scale of the organization can be a challenge for being able to scale great management and great leadership. So this is all focused on scaling great management. We're absolutely delighted that you're here with us. We've got people dialed in, I think, from lots of different places. So maybe let's do like a little bit of a roll call. If you're dialed in, let us know where you're at, let us know your city, say hello for your team, for your organization, or whereabouts you might be on our wonderful planet. I'm based in London and we've got some hot weather. Actually, this is like a national emergency. We're at 30 degrees. So for those of you around the world who may have it much hotter than we do, then spare a thought for us poor British here at 30 degrees, and we are suffering. Actually, I don't know if I can show you a shot of this. Let's flip the camera around, but this is outside. This is strange to see. This is sunny London, a rare sight, sunny London. Anyway, welcome to this stream, and we're delighted to be with you to share best practices, insights from a really special and unfolding story of change across a huge sort of space, really across the entire continent of Africa. And I'm going to introduce our very special guests in a moment, but just to set this up. So in terms of some housekeeping, we're going to run for around 45 minutes to an hour. Let's see how we go. We would love to invite as many questions as possible, so please feel free to use the chat functions. I think this is going out on a few different platforms on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook and also those of you who've connected through direct email. So thank you very much. So please feel free to submit any questions. We'll endeavour to answer as many of those as possible at the end. And for those that we can't answer, of course, we'll get back to you with an answer on those. We've got one of my colleagues live on the line who's called Rose. So Rose is going to be helping to field some questions. So please feel free to send some of those through. My name, I should have said this at the beginning, is Wayne Clark, and I'm the CEO of the World Class Manager Organisation. And we specialise in developing line manager capability all around the world. We've now had around 250,000 managers go through our programs. And what we're constantly looking for are best practices. What are we seeing with great leaders, great managers in all shapes and sizes of organizations? And I think one of the important jobs that we can play, and certainly I like to play, is to shine a light, a big torch on what we see that works really well. Best practice, great managers, great leaders doing great things. And when we find them, even more special, are finding really hyper-effective, and we would argue world-class HR teams who are delivering exceptional change that's ultimately seen by their key stakeholders as ultra valuable, hence why we're here talking to the people we're going to talk to today. So I'm going to do a very brief intro and then let's get into it. So we're delighted, I'm certainly delighted, I'm sure you will be too, that we're joined by a lady called Dudu Moloko from FirstRand Group. So I'm going to let Dudu explain a little bit more about her background and her history. Hopefully she can weave that into some of the story that she'll share. She's going to be joined by her colleague who's called Sudeshni Gundan, and she's also going to share some insights from the program that they've launched across FirstRand Group, which we've been absolutely blown away by. We've been working quite closely with them for a year or two, and I think there are very few organizations that have achieved the level of take-up, the level of engagement and change, and the results that FirstRand Group are seeing. So this is a live unfolding case story. I'm a huge fan of sort of seeing these things happen as they do. Often you can go to conferences and podcasts and people love to tell you this gloss story, right? This was the challenge. This is what we did, this was the result. And often you look at that and you think, well, any of us involved in actual change in organization knows it's never usually that smooth. So I think it's great that, and a huge thank you to both of them to bring to life a real live unfolding case story and case study of change. So we're absolutely delighted. And I'm going to introduce my very, very special co-host from the CIPD, a man called Stephen Pobjoy. So Stephen looks after all sorts of important strategic changes and initiatives for the CIPD, which, if you don't know, is the Chartered Institute of Personal Development. So again, we're absolutely delighted to have Stephen with us, and he's going to share some of his insights in terms of, I guess, what the CIPD are up to in this space, and also what this means for what we're discussing today with looking at really hyper-effective HR teams, of which we've got one here with FirstRand, and also what that means in terms of driving change in organizations too. So with the help of technology, if this does work as it's meant to, we're going to bring in Stephen. So hi, Stephen, how are you doing?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Wayne. Yeah, it's great to have so many people online today for this session as well. And I think I echo Wayne's thoughts from this case study. It is evolving, but it's been an exceptional story to tell on sort of purposeful leadership. So I'm really pleased that we're hosting this session today. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things from CIPD. So I work with our sort of senior HR leader community across the UK and bits of Ireland and Europe as well. It's a fascinating role, and we get to research and put in place, in terms of skills policy, etc., the changing world of work. So I'm fascinated in all of those organisational shifts, and I think there's a massive focus at the moment on performance, efficiencies, use of tech. And we keep coming back to the role of the manager being paramount important in that piece. And I think that's just going to grow and grow as we implement AI, etc., throughout the company. It's interesting when we look at some of those performance and cultural parts, it really does sit with the manager. And Wayne and I have spoken at length about the amount of time that managers get with employees to go through performance and development initiatives, and I think that's a key unlock that we're interested in as well. Just a couple of things from a CIPD point of view. We've launched what we call a Focus On series, so looking at leadership and management. There's bits on the CIPD website around AI tools, etc. So I'll share some of those details as well. And also, obviously, we've got our profession map, which we link capabilities and development to. So do go on and look at some of those different aspects. from CIPD. I think it's when we see those clear development paths through organisations backed up by good management practices from managers, that's where we really start to unlock some performance. So that's one of the reasons why I'm really keen to host this case study, but also the discussion with Wayne afterwards. I think what we're starting to see is a massive mindset shift as well. So when we start implementing other tech tools, it's about that curiosity with tech, but how it can add that intelligence lens to some of our work and our working practices as well. So I'm just looking forward to seeing how that develops over time. But I think some of the training and development that's been put into organisations that help manage some of these things has been a bit lacking, and I think that skills development is going to be critical over the next sort of 6 months to a year as we come through, because we think there's about 15% of companies that are investing in training around tech for managers at the moment, but it's growing rapidly. It's fair to say that managers and employees are being asked to do more with less, so that puts more on this sort of middle manager layer. So what capabilities and what skills do we need to upskill at the moment? As I said, there's plenty of resources out there at the moment, and I'm sure Wayne and the team will share everything as a pack afterwards. But I'm just delighted to introduce Dudu today to go through the FirstRand case study. So Dudu, over to you to introduce yourself, please.
Oh, I think you're on mute, Dudu.
You're on mute.
This proves it's live, right? For any of you doubting, this is definitely pre-recorded. There you go.
Thank you so much, Stephen and Wayne, for the introduction and this opportunity to share our story. And huge hello to everyone in the audience that's joined this conversation. Maybe before I respond to the exam question, let me just share a little bit about myself. So my name is Dudu Moloko. I am based in Johannesburg, South Africa. Part of the time, the rest of the time, I'm based in Accra in Ghana. I was reflecting as I was preparing for this conversation around why I do this work. And I wanted to share a little bit of my story. Those people that are very ambitious and know that they just want to ascend to the highest heights of leadership. That was never me. I think I had an intuitive sense that it's really lonely at the top. And so I am a reformed, reluctant leader who really understands the journey of leadership. And I really want leaders to win. And that's why I do what I do. That's why this sort of work is so important to me. I find real meaning in it. And that's the lens through which I approach the work that we do. So that's a little bit about me. I joined FirstRand a little over 2 years ago, and a little bit about what the business looks like. So we were established in about 190 years ago, give or take. So we're a founders organization at heart. We have over 50,000 employees in about 12 or 13 geographies. So we are headquartered in Johannesburg, South Africa, but we have a presence in 8 markets on the African continent, including Nigeria, Ghana, which are quite large economies. But we also have a bank in the UK. Some of you might know it who are in the UK. It's called Aldermore. And we're building a presence in India from a fintech perspective, and we're in the US a little bit. So that's a little bit about the organization. We are the biggest bank by market capitalization on the African continent. So we have a huge, a really proud heritage as a founders organization, but we are at a point where we are transforming and moving into a more professional management type of organization, which you can imagine causes some friction. So when I joined the organization, I was very excited to be leading in this leadership development space. But I heard a lot of things. So one of the things that was consistent was we have a lot of clever people in FirstRand, actuaries, quants, credit people, you know what it takes to run the bank, very technically astute. But what we do is we promote them based on technical prowess. And then what happens is we leave them. So they're supposed to learn how to lead people through osmosis. That works sometimes, but most of the time it doesn't. And so we were seeing it in different aspects. For example, our employee engagement survey was very clear to say we had a leadership problem. Leaders were not having conversations around development, around career. They were not having great performance conversations. They were struggling to engage. Very much command and control in a lot of our subsidiaries, especially. So emotional intelligence not there. People feeling really disempowered. And so we needed to really attend to this. Luckily, our business in Aldermore had a solution, World-Class Manager, and they were running it and successfully. And their approach was very much digital, so consume the content in a self-paced or asynchronous way, give you a license and off you go. We realized very quickly, so we looked at the product and immediately was sold in terms of the content, in terms of the quality, in terms of the practical tools, but realized very early that we would have to take a different approach. And so in terms of delivery, so what we went with was a blended approach. So where you had, number one, people needed to complete the work prior to coming into a facilitated session. So you had self-paced within a time frame, asynchronous pre-work to do, consuming the content digitally, and then coming into a facilitated session that was designed to really contextualize the content for our organization and address some of the business issues we were finding, but also we approached it in a very practical way. So people were playing with some of the tools. If you've seen World-Class Manager, you'll know that they're very practical. So we were allowing people to immerse themselves. I mean, we have a learning zone in those collabs, but we also have a play zone or an immersive zone where people are going through case studies, applying the methodology. We were very clear from the start around what the guiding principles were going to be. And I think those have really served us on this journey. Number one, which was already a tick, we wanted world-class content, and we had that through the digital World-Class Manager solution. Two, which was critical, we wanted leaders as teachers. What do I mean by that? Executive presence, executive sponsorship, executive participation. It was really important for us to position this not as another leadership development program or an HR solution. So we put executive sponsors as the face, the invites, everything came from the executive executive sponsors, and they were involved at key parts of the program. 3, because we come from a founders organization that has been primarily, let's say, federated, or we still have echoes, let me say, of federation. We were very clear that a guiding principle was to manufacture meaningful relationships and connections across. So those are the principles that we build the program around. My colleague Sudeshni will tell you a little bit more about the mechanics. I am really proud and excited about the progress. We started this journey about 18 months ago, and preliminary results are really encouraging. So we wanted to start small so that we could prove the value. We didn't want to prove the concept. We knew the concept would work, but that we could prove the value. So we started with 107 managers, 3 cohorts, 1 in South Africa, 1 in Botswana, and another in Lesotho. We now have 3 or 4 more cohorts in progress. That's 96 managers. And we've got in the pipeline waiting, we're swatting people away, which is a good problem to have. We have 400 who are waiting for their turn. Other measures, I know that NPS, Net Promoter Score, is a vanity measure, but we really are proud that our NPS on average is over 80%. So in terms of the content digitally, but also in terms of the facilitated collab sessions, which is quite a thing. We had planned for quite a lower ENPS. Furthermore, I hear from Wayne and Rose at World Class Manager that our completion of the digital content is quite exemplary. So we really pushed that, I have to say. We really pushed it, and the executive sponsorship really helped from that perspective. So I think our completion is nothing less than 80%. I know Lesotho have 100% completion. So, I mean, that's a little bit about, at a high level, conceptually, how we are thinking about this work. As I said, I think critically for us was not to position this as another HR program because people have been through that, but to position it as a strategic business solution that is anchored in our context. So the world-class content is phenomenal, but it was important for us to make it real and say, what does this look like here? So I think, probably something else to sort of share is as a guiding principle and as a design principle, we wanted fantastic, high caliber facilitators and contributors. And Sudeshni will tell you how we went about also building that capability as part of this work. So I think at a high level, I don't want to overstay my welcome. That's the strategic positioning and the view. I'm gonna hand it back over to Wayne.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Wayne.
Well, Dudu, I mean, that is really quite something. Last night I watched as an interview, Kevin O'Leary, the US investor who's on Shark Tank, has done an interview on the Stephen Bartlett podcast. And he was sharing, it's well worth checking this thing out, but he shares a short story about how Steve Jobs operated. And the large thing that he did was, it was this ability to focus on the signal of what they needed to do and black out all of the noise, or blank out all of the noise in the background. And he recognized that both when he sees that in other entrepreneurs and other companies he invests in, he realizes that's the key. If they've got the ability to do that, because it's one of the hardest things to do, because the noise level in our modern world is even louder and louder and louder. And I think the reason why, in my opinion, as an outsider, of seeing how you've managed to achieve the success you have so far is just the focus. the focus combined with the work rate is like a winning combo, right? You could not be, you could not fail with your level of focus and the work rate. And I think what, Sadeshi's going to do is bring the, like, in a way, the how-to to life even more. But for anyone listening in, trying to figure out how do you drive high levels of adoption and utilization and engagement around a program and get a plus 80% EMPS score, I mean, it's kind of evident in what you've described, the volume of work rate, the focus, and the effort you've put in has been quite remarkable to see. So I have a few questions, but we're going to save that until the end, because I'm sure hopefully we're going to get some more questions in too. But thank you so much, Dudu, and absolute joy to bring in Sudeshni into this conversation. So hi, Sue, how are you doing?
Hi, Wayne. I am great. I'm really thrilled to be here today. And listening to Dudu, it feels like I'm an outsider and just going, wow, that's us. But yeah, really, really feeling uplifted and inspired to share what we know.
Brilliant. So the ball's in your court. I'm going to disappear and it's over to you.
Thank you, Wayne. Hi, everyone. My name is Sudeshni. I am the world-class manager lead for FirstRand Bank. Who am I? I am an energetic human who has a love and lust for everything around people. And leadership development was the thing I got to do and the joy that inspired me to do some great work. I'm taking every care to get as much information into your hands that we've gathered over the last 18 months, actually 2 years. It feels like yesterday, but it hasn't been. To talk to you through how we actually roll this out, and if there's any L&D professionals, to really give you and inspire you with some of the nuggets that really worked to tick this off and make this what it is and growing into. So World Class Manager is a phenomenal platform. And from Dudu's positioning, you would know that the content we didn't have to worry about, which was probably the biggest relief. But what really works in the content is the level of application and the level of framework design. That's what actually took this program to the next level. So when we went into design and building the collabs and trying to really, really focus on what would really make a difference, it was actually bringing the frameworks to life within the collabs. So we focused on 3 big areas. If I think about it at a umbrella view: content, which was delivered through World Class Manager online platform; context, which was delivered through leaders as teachers, ExCo members coming in, sharing perspective, challenging the teams, landing strategic positioning or employment engagement positioning; subject matter experts from our business to really bring in the FirstRand practice or philosophies to life, aligned with the modules. And then we had application. And application was really about not doing content. You came in with your knowledge, hopefully, which we'll see they have, and we got to play. We created 2 spaces, which was learning and immersive, and they would evolve between 2. And the reason for that was learning was where they really worked as a group, unpacked, presented, did plenary sessions. The immersive zone was very much about reflection, dialogue, getting deeper and more in touch with the essence of leadership. Now, why the application and the collabs were so important was that's really where we pushed mindset and behavior shift, and we challenged every single dominant thought based in a very traditional way of being. As you know, we had specialists moved into leader position or high performers, and what they led with was intellect. And what we were trying to shift was more into EQ and leadership practice and behaviors. So where it came up, your faculty or your facilitators were really, really important. We logically themed the World Class Manager 24 modules into buckets of related modules according to our business cycle. And based on that, as people went through it, so for example, a theme of goal setting and coaching, they'd have 4 modules that are related to that. They would work through that for about 3 to 4 weeks because they have to practice and reflect and jot down their thinking. You then move them into the collab. In the collab, we took very key pertinent pieces out of those modules, and we created real deep immersive experiences, which was phenomenal, because this is where the learning actually happened, and the grappling and the testing of mindset, because through the conversations you could pick up where they were stuck, where we needed to shift. And that's why our faculty was so important. Now, we took a very deliberate decision that we would build internal faculty to really support and drive this. We wanted to create energy and powerhouse vibes within our HR community. And we put a call out, and for the pilots, started developing facilitators. Dudu and I are a few of them, and we have another colleague, Itumeleng, that was the third. And we really started developing how do we get this execution excellence out. So our facilitators are really bolstered by a very strong train the trainer concept that we are in the process of now starting to streamline. It's really important for us to get the right facilitator. And the reason for that is to really encourage the mindset movement and the behavior movement. So if you are planning to do this, you really need to focus on what type of beast you're going to bring into the classroom if it's internal. The second part of our decision-making on the faculty was an integrator role, which is more than a coordinator. This person really holds the employee experience or the delegate experience, from comms to logistics and planning and getting the facilitator ready, running through planning, launches, graduation. They really are the people that bring the experience alive. They are key role into with the facilitator, really making world-class managers stick. They also drive the communication to get all of our delegates up and running with navigation, pushing comms, ensuring that people are really stuck on completing the modules in time for the collab. Now, you're probably wondering how we won over 100% completion in some places and actually over 80% in most. We had installed a rule, for lack of a better word, that you would have to complete your modules before you entered the collab. We would draw reports, and if you hadn't, you would get a pleasant worded email that said, you cannot attend. Now, in some places that worked and in some it didn't. We gave some leeway here and there, but we started seeing traction because content is not covered in the collab. It's application. So you can't get the benefit of learning if you don't do that. So it was a really a decision that would instill the behavior that we needed. Some of the outcomes that we saw, Judy spoke to some of the metrics, just incredible completion rates, impact and relevance rates, some of the highest voted or most liked or relevant content was delegation, time optimization, and managing difficult conversations. Two stories that I want to highlight, one very individual and powerful, and the other one a business-orientated one. Our colleague a delegate in our retail business, F&B, had gone through the program and had soon realized through delegation and time optimization how he could leverage the content. Now he works in a highly stressful environment and felt the pressure of being a leader that takes on every single decision. And in the program realized that the power of delegation and how to actually do that and trust, and started releasing tactical, operational activities to team members that could do it, because that's how the content really empowers you. Through that, was able to relieve some of his time so he could focus on strategic imperatives, but most importantly, focus on well-being, which is a key part of leadership. And in 3 months had lost 19 kilograms. Now that is a very inspirational individual transformation story. On the other hand, from a business story, what we had was a legal team in Botswana, was a leader who came in leading very, very successful, high energy and highly competent legal expertise, thinking imposter syndrome, what am I going to add value to? One of the modules calling create a standout team and time optimization and delegation. She started refining her process and mindset. And now they are leading, doing amazing things and creating such uproar in the business, getting recognized and having employee recognition awards across the board. So those are just two of the very simple stories that I can, simple in what they've, in how they've taken the learning, but big impact to the business and individually. From an HR perspective, this has been a very interesting journey to land an enterprise scaling model. And what we've had to really employ was a collective approach to scaling and how we're going to build this. So we have a partnership model across business and across segment and country to help us build faculty, identify the right faculty, work with integrators, solid collateral and community building. We use Viva Engage to get all the delegates together and send constant weekly communication to create change and energy around the program. We have deep collateral for facilitators, a playbook, well-designed playbook. We have trained the trainers, sign off in a certification process. And then we have integrators to really get the process and the system and the logistics side nailed. And we're really looking at building a powerhouse HR team that can deliver for the group. There are some setbacks where you want to go speed to scale with impact. So we may augment that with some external facilitators, but trying to keep most of our delivery within FirstRand. Some of the key learnings that we've taken away was your EXCO sponsorship cannot be underestimated. They are really the face. They are the front of the program. It is a business-led program, not an HC program. So we sort of sit on the side, partnering and facilitating the journey. The blended learning to facilitate digital, teaching people how to incorporate digital into actual immersive learning. Quality and execution, excellence over everything. So your faculty has to be consistent in delivery. Your collateral has to be consistently delivered. Experience has to be consistent. The self-learning being a little bit difficult about and directive about completing learning to get into collabs, hugely beneficial. And then we are doing deeper evaluation going forward. That will be a part of our roadmap. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit now. We are basing an evaluation framework that is really going to talk about looking at some teaming data, some HR data, as well as program data that we are really going to measure to see if we are making the impact post-program and are people really engaging and moving the business forward. We'll hopefully come back and give you some positive feedback. For now, it seems uplifting and the news is positive, but we are still tracking, so not yet ready to share. We are looking going forward to scaling and getting 400 more delegates on board. That's for the next financial year. Faculty enablement and integrator enablement is critical. And we really are looking at how do we engage more business impact to drive further energy in wanting the program. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I'm sure a lot more information will come through the questions. Thank you, Wayne. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Wow. I mean, where do you even begin? I'm not going to begin, actually. I'm going to ask Stephen to take on this joyous sort of challenge in a way of being able to summarize. And I'm interested, Stephen, because you know, in your role at the CIPD, you have access to see so many different organizations at play. You see so many things work, maybe not work or struggle. And I'm genuine. This isn't a loaded question for anyone, listening. This is live, and this wasn't a question we posed to Stephen beforehand. But I'm genuinely interested in your sort of reaction to what you've heard from Duru and Sudeshni, and your thoughts.
I think it's how it's been set up. We know that change programs, whatever scale and size, and particularly around development, can sometimes be lacking in different areas. But I think the one thing that really rings true from this is the drive to get it through, and that's come through on the chat as well. I think I love that idea as the leaders and teachers in this, and that strong facilitator bit. I had a question, actually, I don't know, Dudu or Sue, about that. You keep coming back to the powerhouse HR team phrase, and I wondered if we could just unpick that slightly, because it might be really interesting for people on this call to understand a bit more about maybe some of the skills in HR and what that means internally.
Maybe I'll give it a go, and then Sue can add. So I mentioned earlier with leaders and teachers. So we had the world class content. That was a tick, right? We know what makes a great leadership program. The content has to be phenomenal. The faculty has to be phenomenal. And people tend to enjoy it a lot more when they build meaningful relationships and connections. And so that world-class faculty of facilitators was really critical. And we wanted very high caliber, a high caliber faculty. Think, business school esque, with gravitas, with the ability to really hold a collab, right, and land the things that we wanted to land. We were very strict about taking people through. We still are taking people through that training Sudeshni was talking about, and accrediting them and having them observe, let's say, a super facilitator before they even get going. So we build not just the facilitators, but the integrators on the ground. So yeah, the powerhouse, but the intent is that world-class manager for us is a flagship in terms of leveling up on the essential of people management. And so we're creating brand equity. It's important for us that it's consistently delivered. I mean, some of the positive impact is around EXCO members saying, oh my gosh, we think we want to participate in this. And that's what we want. And so that powerhouse high caliber facilitator is really critical for us. We unfortunately, we didn't want to just have HR people be facilitators, but we had no takers in the organization. So my advice would be, if you know a fantastic marketing people tend to be really good at this facilitation people, or other business people, even better, because it's, speaks to, this isn't an HR initiative, this is a business solution. Sue, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'd like to add, in addition to the HR powerhouse team of facilitators and integrators, our subject matter experts who come from our HR COEs are really key players. So we've landed in certain modules or themes, collabs. We have partnered with our internal centers of expertise, where specialists come in and land FirstRand practices, our philosophy, our way of doing things. How would you land this? And we really unpack some of the learning. So it's broader than just L&D at this point. We're starting to include our performance management and enablement teams. We're starting to talk to some of our development or development leads that come in and talk about career management and our philosophy of learning and how to build and develop your own learning paths. So it's starting to become this ecosystem of HR that actually enables this machine to work the way it needs to work. Yeah.
And what's your biggest learning from this work and this program?
That's a good question. Let me take that one from my perspective. For a business our size, start small. You'll get pressure to speed up scale and deliver quickly. The glue that made this work was being deliberate about where and who we were going to pilot with, the reason behind it, and taking it slow and holding strong to that decision. Because what we did was, after every collab happened, three pilot areas. Content was updated, refined based on the facilitator's feedback, refined, built, playbook updated, and we iterated continuously. It was, just intense. But by the time our pilot was done, we have such confidence in our product and solution that we know we're good to go. And that we don't question the quality of that. So probably my greatest insight is at scale, just hold off on the pressure, be very deliberate about how you want to scale, who you want to scale, and what's the value you want to see. And go slow to go fast.
Great. Dudu, anything from you on that sort of key learning piece?
I think it's okay to it's okay to struggle in the beginning, because it sounds now in Sudeshni, it sounds like she's flexing, but we've got real scars on our back from having to. So in our organization, I think in other more advanced organizations, it might be different. In our organization, we had to really explain what we meant by why a blended solution, and what that meant, and the benefit of it, instead of just giving people licenses and then saying off you go. So we took a lot of slack on that, and we took a lot of slack on saying, no, we are not. If you're not ready as the CEO of a country or as an exco member to sponsor, then it's okay. Come back to us when you're willing to participate. So that we took a lot of flack on that. But at the same time, huge lesson is that concept of executive sponsorship and participation. Leaders as teachers, it's incredible when we have we kick off a session, actually, just to bring you into the room a little bit. The launch, we kick off with the executive sponsor sitting in a circle and talking about a problem. And there's a method, it's a problem, it's crowdsourcing, problem solving, but they're very vulnerable in that moment. And it launches it in such a meaningful way. It's phenomenal. It's incredible how people want to hear from their leaders. So we also have an executive panel where they come in. Sudeshni spoke about that. So there are critical parts where the executive has to participate. Of course, we prep them and we tell them what to do, and we give them everything that they need. But that is a critical thing. If your executive is not ready to sponsor, then I strongly suggest not going with them. They're not ready. Then it becomes another run-of-the-mill HR program, and then you struggle with things like adoption and engagement and completion, right? So those are my two lessons, Stephen.
That's really interesting, because you're building that trust straight away with the group.
Yeah, absolutely.
And can I ask, for everyone else who's on whatever platform you're on, please do feel free to submit a question or a thought, or it might even be something that you've tried and that's actually worked. It could be something that you tried and it's not worked. This is it's a free open forum here. So please feel free to share any thoughts and questions. I guess my question to both of you is, and having seen this, foot in both camps, right? Obviously, we've been slightly involved in the process and also looking at it from the outsider's view. Is we see that so many organizations, in a way, waste learning. So it's one of the observations we'd had at the beginning, before we even created the World Class Manager program in its current form. We were looking at this consistent challenge of, I was going back to see so many leadership teams, and I'd find out there was like a pocket of best practice in the organization. And then the more that you get across any organization, you realize, oh my God, like these guys have got the same problem. These guys have fixed this problem over here. But often because you've got quite disjointed and siloed organizations, like people don't share insight, share learning. I began in, showing my age, I'm going grey, but I began in 1998. Deloitte, as it now is, Arthur Andersen. And my first job was working in knowledge management, knowledge transfer. And it's fascinating because we were learning things that BP had learned. And BP had learned it from the US military about how to essentially share knowledge rapidly across an organization. And it was something, there was a book given to me by my boss called The Learning Organization. And this was the promise of the late 90s. You remember, we were going to solve this problem.
Yes,
We never solved the problem. What you're doing at scale, which is quite remarkable, is, you're taking these learnings from different geographies, and you're driving change, quite rapidly. As slow as you might feel it is sometimes, this is quite rapid given the scale of your organization. And I think the way that you're doing it is embedding the learning in that it feels sustainable. Because in a lot of places, it might be that there's a rapid change program. It kind of looks on the surface like this worked, or it got, in quotes, rolled out. But actually its impact is usually like questionable because it just doesn't stick enough. And I think the process you've gone through by at the very beginning, sitting in that circle and talking about what the real issue is, enables people to really connect with it. So again, I'm interested that as you go on the next part of the journey now with the other people that might go through, is there something that you've already learned that you significantly change, or do you feel like you've got a winning formula now, just keep going with it?
Let me take that one. Wayne, I think if we don't evolve the program, we would be shooting ourselves in the foot just because there's so much happening in the world. I think we have a good start. And so we really want to just embed this going forward. So we're probably not going to touch it for a bit, just to let it really consistently land, embed the real learnings that we want to get at a solid foundation and get the engine moving. As we start seeing some shifts in our leadership capability, we will then evolve what we need to evolve. I also know that World Class Manager will evolve to add more content. So we'll probably partner with you and the team to match what's coming through globally and through World Class Manager. But for now, what our real focus is to really embed and entrench the program that we have to at least the next year or 18 months, and then think about redesign in that way. Yeah, I don't know, Dudu, if you want to add to that point.
Absolutely. Maybe to build on that, there are things that we want to come out of it, right? So, for example, in Botswana, they are creating an alumni community, right? Because they were the first to go, they were the pioneers. We're creating an alumni to be the change, right? So those are additions, I suppose. You do continuous improvement. You can never say everything is done. We are very excited about the measurement beyond the vanity measures. We're very excited about really measuring whether change has occurred. I fundamentally believe that learning is about change, right? So if change doesn't happen, that means that learning hasn't been embedded. Might be acquired, but has it been embedded? So very excited about it's based on the theory of change. So, formative assessment and then a summative assessment, and to check whether people have actually changed, and we're seeing those results in some critical areas of the business. So I think that's a big thing where we're landing next. But the alumni, so using people who've been through it to actually share the knowledge in their areas.
Yeah, really important. And then, Stephen, I'm just interested with, again, all the things that you're seeing. And, a big label of this session as we set it up was looking at the effectiveness of the HR team. Oh, should we pause there? Because there's some questions coming in, which is great news. I'll come back to that, maybe if we've got time. So, question. I don't know who this is. We're going to read this all at the same time. From Dion Morrison. Please could I ask what your immersive sessions look like? Are you able to give us a short, quick overview?
Yeah. They are so cool. So what we've done is we have an immersive zone that we create, and we're quite playful. So we have in our immersive zone, we have little squishy toys and weird things always on the seated area for people to really realize that they're in a different space in the room. So it's usually a conference room. You have your learning zone, which looks like a classroom, a round table, square tables, but group-based. And then on the one side, we have a circle where people then talk and dialogue. But some of our immersive simulations, I'll talk to probably Collab 5, and it is really about bringing all of the Collab learning into one space. We've created a role-play simulation where we have a board and we have the teams who they take on a company persona, and they each have roles to play, from CEO to CFO to CMO. and they sort of build a case based on a scenario where they're either taking a product expansion or into international markets, and they present it to the board, and the board is very much prepped to be a board. They take it to another level, as people usually do when they're in role play. But the whole point of it is to really understand the dynamics of what leadership scenarios looks like, and how to present your case, and how to present with presence, and how to sell a case. They have to build a whole lot of employee data, decision making into that. What's the people impact of a change? So we've taken a whole lot of the content and we've just created it very much into a very immersive experience. We have board-in sessions, so it's run like a board. Everyone is quiet. They literally have 10 minutes, like you would when you do a board presentation, and then you leave. So everyone gets to watch and gets under pressure. And so we've created a few of these examples where they're really under pressure to bring the content through. They have time to prep. The learning from that is just the more you do that, it needs to be well designed to encourage them to use the content and to bring in a lot of perspective change and mindset shift. That's just giving you one example of that level of immersion. And then the usual role plays, deep group activities. We've been very deliberate in how we design the activity around what the content is that we want to land specifically, or the framework that we want to land, or the model. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, that's a great answer. Thank you so much, Sue. This is a quick fire round. This. So next question question from LinkedIn. Faduru.
Okay. I have read it. So I think, Rose, time poverty is a real thing. Stephen and Wayne and Sudeshni and myself spoke about this at length. And so we find that it's really important for the programs to have the right balance and be really consumable, right? So, and that's what we have with a world-class manager, the digital solution. The content is video-based, punchy, to the point, and then there's a performance support tool for you to go practice that. And so being very deliberate of not having long-winded content for people to consume, because it's a real thing, right? I think the collab was a real draw card, because people actually really enjoyed them. So everybody wanted to come into the collab and experience. You know, they don't know coming in, oh, how is this one going to work? And so that drove them to complete the self-learning, because as Sudeshni shared earlier, we were strict about you will not come into the collab if you haven't completed your self-paced learning. So it drove adoption and engagement, but also executive sponsorship. So where we saw immediately that we were having an issue, we would just go straight to the sponsor and say, here, we're having an issue, and they would address it, like sort of name and shame. So those are the hacks. So that how you design the delivery is really important, because those who miss the collabs then get FOMO, right? They hear from others, oh my word, okay, so next time I better complete. FOMO is a real cool thing to manufacture, so they want to not miss out. I hope that's helpful.
It was for me. That's a great answer. Thank you so much. And as a final one, so I'm conscious of time, Stephen, maybe we could get your final thought for the session. Again, I'm really thankful, and I think I'll probably speak for all of us here, but very thankful that you've engaged with us and in a way given us the platform and been involved in the session. We really appreciate it. And I'd love to get your final thoughts before we close today.
I think going to that effective teams. Oh, sorry, Wayne. Going back to your question about effective teams, we've seen sort of the rise of those smaller project teams, and I think that can be really effective within an organization. But I keep going back to that point around mindset, and we talk a lot about being the change agent, and I hear that an awful lot about how we can set up HR individuals, people, teams to be those change agents within the organisation. So I think this is a really good example of how building out some of that capability gives you license to be that change agent and do things differently.
Perfect. Well, great way to end it as well. A huge thank you, Duru Sudeshni. Thank you for a few things, but I think mainly your generosity of insight and sharing what you've shared. I mean, it's it can be easy sometimes to see things that have progressed as quite straightforward and easy. You follow this formula, it worked. I mean, the amount of effort, it's evident that you've put into this is remarkable. And just thank you for sharing so openly and candidly what you've learned, what's been the struggles, what you might do differently next time. I mean, this is so valuable to see. And I think it's much more valuable to see live as it's unfolding like this, rather than a glossy sort of case study at the end of it, which is always a bit questionable because it was never that straightforward. And a huge thank you to... Yeah, and a huge thank you to Stephen for being involved with us in this session. Absolute delight to do this with you and, of course, with the CIPD. So a huge thank you. Thank you for everyone who's connected in. We're going to plan to do this again, we hope, probably in the autumn. Actually, I think we've got somebody very special from our National Health Service who's going to share some insights in our next unfolding story of scaling great management. And just to play us out, it's part of a tradition here with music and me, because I'm a big fan of music. I thought we'd play us out. I found this young South African artist called Craze, and he's produced a load of songs. So anyone who knows me, I'm big into Amapiano. If you don't know what Amapiano is, check it out. But hopefully this is playing in the background. So this will play us out. A huge thank you to everyone dialing into the session, and we look forward very much to seeing you next time on Scaling Great Management. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.